Hello, graphic design. We are working on our Photoshop basics right now, so I'm just going to review what we talked about in class. We talked about different ways that you could select pixels and then use masking to mask off the rest of the pixels that you don't have selected. There's multiple ways to do this. I'm just going to show you a couple basics here in this project. Remember, your end goal here for this project is to just make a basic composition showing me over here in your layers that you know how to mask. So let's get to it. First thing, when you should have downloaded all of these images here from the Google Classroom, make sure that you download the full-size files so they're not like really small and pixelated. And we put them all on an image here that we created a document that was 8.5 by 11 inches. 11 inches wide and 8.5 inches high. And remember, inches matters when it comes to Photoshop, because if you have to change your document measurements or units, you're going to end up probably with something that's really pixelized, because you can't adjust it as easily as you could when you were in Illustrator. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is over here on my right hand side, I'm noticing that my layers panel right here is pretty small, and I want it to be the whole length of this program so that I can really see my layers. So I'm just going to drag my layers panel over here to where I can see this blue line. See how when my cursor gets to the edge, a blue line shows up, and as soon as I let go, it snaps it to that edge. And so now I have my layers taking up this entire length, which I like. Now over here I still have properties, adjustments, and libraries, which actually I don't really need for this project. So I could snap this back over here and have it nest with these other tabs here at the top, and I can still see the whole length. You can go into these little hamburger menus here and say things like close tab group or close just this one window, you know, those kinds of things. So organize your space first. Organize your working space. All right, here we go. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move this yellow wall down at the bottom of the layers panel, because that's going to be our background. So I just don't even really need to deal with that right now. And I am going to turn off the eyeballs on all the other layers except for the curly hair girl layer, just so that I can really focus on just one thing at a time here. So I'm zooming in just a little so we can see a little bit better what we're doing. So I'm going to use my first tool over here on the left hand side, which is my move tool, and you can see that you can grab this layer and move it around. You can also grab the little corners here and stretch them. You don't have to push shift when you stretch them, because Photoshop already constrains the properties for you. But you do want to make sure you have the ability to scale something up or down with your move tool. If you don't see these little corners here where you can grab, you want to make sure that you have this button right here at the top. It says show transform controls. Make sure that is checked at all times. It's just handy to have on. All right, here we go. So the first masking technique I talked about in class is how to deal with something like this where there's curly hair, where you can see through it to the background. How to kind of mask that without having to draw every single little hair. So what we tried first was over here on the left-hand side, we have a couple of these tools which are selection tools. So this first one we're looking at, we have a rectangle, an ellipse, some rows. Those are to select things in those particular shapes. We don't need those right now. You also have below that, you have a couple of different tools like a lasso tool and a polygon lasso tool, some things like that, which, for example, the lasso tool, I could go like this, you know, oh, my mouse is stuck. I could go like that, you know, and select random pixels, but that is also not what I want, because I do not want all that orange. So Command D, D as in dog, Command D to deselect. So I'm going to use these next tools below here, where I have Object Selection Tool, Quick Selection Tool, and Magic Wand Tool. First one I showed you in class was this one, the Quick Selection Tool. It looks like a little paintbrush with a little swoopy dotted line over it. I'm going to hover it by her, and I'm just going to use the bracket keys next to the letter P to scale up my brush so it's a little bigger, about the size of a dime, kind of about the size of her mouth there. And if you notice, there is a tiny little plus sign inside of that circle. If you push Option, you can turn that plus sign into a negative sign. So I'm going to start out with the plus sign in the middle, and I'm just going to run this brush on the inside out of her. Okay? Not worrying too much if it's not exactly perfect. All right? So there's my selection. Maybe I'll get a little bit more of this hair. Oh! But what happened is when I tried to get a little more hair, my selection running ants just jumped all the way out to here. This is my opportunity to use the negative and push it back in from the outside in. So I'm using my Option key, and I can push from the outside in and just push this back in. Now again, I'm not worried about this being too specific because I'm going to refine it in a second. All right, so that's generally okay. But now that I know I still am missing a lot of this hair, I'm going to go up here to this button at the top that says Select and Mask. That button's only going to show up when you have something selected. That shows up. So I'm going to say Select and Mask, and it brings me into this pop-up window. You notice this is on top of the other windows I was just in, so this is just a temporary window. And over here I have properties, and I have different ways of viewing what I have selected. So you can make adjustments. I like overlay right now. It's the one I'm like into right now. So I'm going to stick with that one, and I'm going to change my overlay settings to being somewhere in the 70s so I can see what I have selected and what I don't have selected with red. You can pick any color you want, really. And then I am going to use this tool over here that looks like a brush with someone's looks like kind of a brush with hair or a brush with a hand holding it. All right. But I'm also going to use this button here at the top that says Refine Hair. So I'm going to try that first and just see what it does. Go ahead and click that. And that did a pretty good job. I can see here, though, I still have some orange showing. Here I have some orange showing, and at the top I have some orange showing. So again, I'm going to use this tool over here on the left-hand side that looks like a hand or hair with a brush. I'm going to make it a little bigger with my bracket keys next to the letter P. And I'm just going to run it half on her, half on the background. And that did not do good at all. Look at that red showing through her shirt. So Command Z, I'm not going to undo that, and I'm going to be a little bit less overlapping when I drag my brush. Still don't like that well, but we'll move on. And the hair up here, I'm gonna just kind of grab any other places where the orange is showing through with that tool, and it works pretty good for that one. Over there. Okay. There are other brush tools over here you could use if you want to really fine-tune something. You can get into it, but right now, just going to leave it at that. And then for sure, don't forget at the end, always, output 2, we're going to say new layer with layer mask here. This gives us the opportunity to see a new layer with a layer mask and still have our old layer here. So I said, okay. And so here's my new mask that I just made. And look how nice her hair masked out there. It's pretty good. And my other one is still back there. It's right now, it's just extra, but it's there just in case I need it. All right, so I'm done with her. I'm going to turn her off right now with the eyeball. And I am going to go to the leaves. So turn this on. Now, I said in the directions, I think I said you need 3 leaves and 3 flowers. So what I'm going to do is before I even start to pick a leaf out and mask it, I am going to make at least 3 copies of these leaves layers. So I'm just going to pull them onto this little plus down here at the bottom of my layers panel. I could also control click in the gray and say duplicate layer. You can do it that way as well. Either way works. Give yourself 3 layers, okay? And I'm going to turn off the other 2. Here we go. So this one, I'm going to use a different technique. This one I'm going to use is my quick selection tool. I'm going to use my object selection tool. So if you can see up here at the top, let's just show, I'm going to show you the difference. If I did use my quick selection tool here and I ran it along here, look it does a really good job. It sees that edge. Because of the fact that these leaves are sitting on a white background, it's really not hard for the computer to be able to tell where the edge of this object is. So that quick selection tool works really well. But just because I would like to show you another tool, Command D to deselect that, I'm going to show you the object selection tool. So this tool, you'll notice that when you're on this layer, I'm not even clicking, I'm just hovering, and it sees any of these leaves I want. So if I click on a leaf with the object selection tool, it does the same exact thing. You can see that the running ants are going all the way around it. And then all I have to do, since I have my pixels selected, is push the mask tool. Right down here in the bottom of your layers, you want to click that tool. It looks like a Japanese flag in black and white. It's like a white rectangle with a gray circle in the middle. Click that and it will place the mask onto your file. So I'm going to turn that one off, turn the next one on. Make sure that you also have the layer itself selected. Just because the eyeball's on doesn't mean the layer is selected. So keep that in mind. All right, and I'm going to pick a different leaf. Click and mask. And the last one here, I'm going to pick a final leaf. I'm going to pick this one and mask. So easy, okay? So those are done. If I turn those on individually, you could see if you use your move tool, you now can move each one individually and scale them up and down. And if you changed your mind, you could always go back into that mask if you hold Shift and click on it, because everything else is still underneath there. Again, that's Shift click on a mask to turn it on or off. All right, so let's turn all these eyeballs off, and I'm going to do my flowers. Same thing. I'm going to make at least 3 copies here of the flowers. I'm going to use, I don't care, you can use your quick selection tool or your object selection tool. Pick a flower and mask it. Go to this one, pick a flower and mask it. And last one, pick a flower and mask it. And now I have 3 flowers and 3 leaves and a girl. And I have only the vines left to do here, so turn them off. All right, so my final selection tool was the one where I show you how to do the red vines. All right, this one is a different selection tool option, and I want you to know that it exists, okay? So with the red vines layer highlighted, all I'm going to do is go up to the word select at the top, and I'm going to say color range. See, now I can select all these things. I can select layers. I can select, you know, there's different choices for selecting things. And I have color range, focus range, subject area, or sky. So I'm going to pick color range in this way option. And you can see I have a little eyedropper in my hands right now out on the screen. And if I click the vines, you can see here in this preview, it's selecting the vines or it's selecting the bricks, or I can select the green vines only back here, you know, looking for just that green color. But I want is the red color right now. So I'm kind of trying to narrow it down to just the reds. And you can adjust your fuzziness here. So having the fuzziness pretty high works pretty well because it gives it a little bit more slack when you're trying to find those reds. What you don't want is you don't want the bricks to show. So try to select a red that gives you the whitest preview over here with the no bricks showing. So you might have to adjust your fuzziness. All right, so that looks pretty good. And I'm going to say, okay. And you can see what that did. It selected all of the red leaves on those vines. And then guess what we do? We mask. So I click this little mask button right here and it applies a mask. And now all I see is those red vines. So when I turn things on behind it, you can see the red vines are now there. They're going to be a little transparent. That's okay. I just want you to try out these different methods, okay? So the green vines, you can do any way you feel works best. You can use any of those techniques that we just went over. You can use the object selection tool, you can use the quick selection tool, or you can use one of these select color range or focus area choices and just try them out. And don't forget to be on the actual layer. And then when you're finally done with everything, you're going to turn everything back on here. And I don't need, there's a couple things I don't need. I will need those green vines, but I just don't have them yet. And you're going to use your move tool and you're going to move things around and change the composition of the whole piece and try to make something that works. Like you could put the flowers in her hair, you could move the vines upside down, you could make her really big. In fact, I hope you do make her much bigger than she is there to take up more of the space. So make a composition and then you're going to save it. The save settings are in Google Classroom and turn it in. Have fun.